You've been crying over someone who never once lost sleep over you. Let that land for a second. You've been replaying conversations, overanalyzing text messages, wondering what you did wrong, and the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. The person you're dealing with is avoidant, and if you don't know what that means yet, by the end of this, you will. And more importantly, you will know exactly where you stand with them. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Avoidants don't break up with you the normal way. They don't sit you down and say it's over. They don't have that conversation. Instead, they disappear slowly. They pull away quietly. They make you feel like you're the problem. They make you chase. They make you beg for the bare minimum. And the whole time, they're sending you signs. Loud ones. You just didn't know what you were looking for. That's exactly what we're going to fix right now. These are the 4 biggest signs that an avoidant wants you out of their life. Not maybe, not sometimes, out. And once you see these signs clearly, you will never again wonder where you stand. You will never again chase someone who has already decided to leave. You will never again shrink yourself for someone who never planned to stay. Before we go further, I need you to do something. I need you to comment the word free below this video. Just that one word, free. Because that's what you're going to feel by the end of this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because what we talk about here is not surface level stuff. This is the real work. Now let's get into it. Sign number 1. They stop making future plans with you. Think about when things were good, or what felt like good. They talked about trips you'd take together, places you'd go, things you'd do. There was always some vague, exciting future being painted, and it felt real. It felt like they were in it with you. It felt like they were building something with you. Now think about right now. When's the last time they brought up something in the future that involved you? When's the last time they said, let's do this together? Or, I want to take you here. Or, I've been thinking about us going there. When's the last time they even mentioned next month? I'll tell you when. It stopped around the same time they started pulling away. And that's not a coincidence. This is one of the most painful signs because it's so quiet. It's not a fight. It's not a confrontation. It's just a slow erasure of your place in their future. They stop including you in tomorrow because in their mind, you're not in it. And avoidants, they're very good at this. They don't announce this shift. They just start letting the future talk fade. And you start to notice that the plans you make never quite materialize. Every time you suggest something, they're vague. Sure, maybe, we'll see. Those 3 phrases are the emotional equivalent of a door being closed in your face. And here's what makes it worse. When you push for something concrete, they make you feel like you're being too much, like you're being too intense, like you're putting pressure on something that's supposed to be casual. But it wasn't casual when they were love bombing you. It wasn't casual when they were pulling you in. It only becomes casual when they want to exit. An avoidant who wants you in their life makes future plans. Not perfect plans, not extravagant plans, but they make plans. They put you in their tomorrow. When they stop doing that, it's because they're already imagining their tomorrow without you in it. And I know that's hard to hear. I know you want to believe that they're just busy. I know you want to believe that they're just stressed. I know you want to believe that they'll come back around. But ask yourself honestly, how long have you been waiting for them to come back around? How many times have you made excuses for behavior that would be unacceptable from anyone else? Because here's what nobody talks about with avoidance. The push and pull is addictive. When they're warm, it feels incredible. It feels like the most connected you've ever felt to another person. And then when they pull away, you go into withdrawal. Literal psychological withdrawal. Your brain is chasing that high. And they know, even if they don't consciously know it, that when they give you just enough warmth again, you'll come back. You'll forgive, you'll forget, you'll start over. And that cycle keeps you stuck while they keep one foot out the door. The absence of future plans isn't just a sign that they're avoidant. It's a sign that they've made a decision. They just haven't said it out loud yet. Sign number 2, they become emotionally unreachable. And I want to be really specific about what this means, because there's a difference between someone being bad at communication and someone being emotionally unreachable. Someone who's bad at communication still tries. They still show up, even if imperfectly. They still make the effort. They might not say the right things, but you can feel them trying. Emotionally unreachable is something else entirely. Emotionally unreachable is when you're sitting right next to them and it feels like they're not even there. Emotionally unreachable is when you try to have a meaningful conversation and they either shut down, deflect with humor, or suddenly need to be somewhere else. Emotionally unreachable is when you share something vulnerable and they respond with something so surface level that you feel more alone than if you'd said nothing at all. And this is especially confusing with avoidance because they weren't always like this with you. In the beginning, they might have opened up, they might have shared things, they might have let you in. And that experience, that brief window of emotional access, is what keeps you trying. Because you know it's possible. You've seen it. You've felt it. So you keep reaching for it. But here's what happens with an avoidant who's decided they want out. They start closing every door. Not all at once, one by one. So slowly that you barely notice it happening, until you realize you haven't had a real conversation in weeks. Until you realize that every time you try to connect, there's a wall. A polite, frustrating, impossible wall. And when you try to talk about the wall, they say you're overthinking. They say everything's fine. They say you need to relax. And then you start wondering if maybe you are overthinking. Maybe everything is fine. Maybe you do need to relax. And just like that, your reality gets gaslit without a single dramatic confrontation. This is how avoidants operate. Not with scenes, not with drama, with quiet, consistent, emotional withdrawal that leaves you questioning your own perception. But I need you to trust your perception here. If you feel like you can't reach them, it's because you can't. Not because you're bad at relationships. Not because you're asking for too much. Because they have decided, whether consciously or not, to become unreachable to you specifically. Emotional unavailability is not a character trait they're working on. When it shows up like this, targeted and consistent, it is a decision and it is a sign. Now, here's where I want to pause and say something important. Some people reading this will think, but maybe if I just approach it differently, maybe if I say it better, maybe if I'm more patient, more understanding, more available, maybe then they'll open up. And I understand that thought. I really do. But think about the people in your life who are genuinely close to this person. Their best friend, their sibling, someone they trust. Are they emotionally available to those people? Are they warm, present, engaged with those people? If the answer is yes, then their emotional unavailability is not a general condition. It is a specific response to you. And that is one of the most clarifying realizations you can have. You are not responsible for dragging someone into connection with you. Connection is something two people choose. When only one person is choosing it, that's not a relationship. That's an exhausting, one-sided performance that you've been starring in alone. Sign number 3. They start creating distance disguised as independence. This one is sneaky. This one is really sneaky because on the surface, it looks reasonable. It looks healthy even. They need space. They value their independence. They have their own life. They don't want to be one of those couples who are attached at the hip. All of that sounds fine. All of that sounds mature. But there's a crucial difference between healthy independence and using independence as a cover to exit. Healthy independence looks like, I need some time to decompress tonight, but let's talk tomorrow. It looks like, I have a lot going on this week, but I'm thinking about you. It looks like, I cherish my alone time and I also cherish the time I spend with you. Using independence as a cover to exit looks like being unreachable for days with no real explanation. It looks like canceling plans consistently and replacing them with nothing. It looks like spending less and less time in your presence and more time doing things that don't involve you, and never suggesting that you be a part of any of it. And when you bring it up, when you say, I feel like we don't see each other much anymore, They turn it into a conversation about how you're too dependent, too needy, too clingy. Suddenly, your completely reasonable desire for connection becomes your character flaw. This is the most manipulative part of how avoidants exit relationships. They engineer a situation where you're getting less and less of them, and then they pathologize you for noticing. They make your needs the problem. They make your desire for closeness the reason the relationship is struggling. And you, because you care about being a good partner, because you don't want to be the needy one, you start suppressing your needs. You start pretending you're okay with less. You start performing independence you don't actually feel. And they take that performance as permission to give you even less. This is the architecture of an avoidant exit. They pull away, you reach. They call you needy, you back off. They pull further, you convince yourself you're okay. They pull further still. And eventually, you look up and realize there's nothing left to hold on to. And somehow, you've been made to feel like that's your fault. It is not your fault. Wanting presence in a relationship is not neediness. Wanting to see the person you're with is not clinginess. Wanting to feel like you matter to someone is not too much to ask. These are the basic requirements of a functioning relationship. And anyone who makes you feel like wanting those things makes you a burden is someone who has already decided they don't want to provide them. Watch how they talk about independence. Watch how they use it. If their need for space keeps expanding while their availability to you keeps shrinking, that's not balance. That's an exit strategy. Sign number 4, they stop fighting for the relationship. And this might be the most important sign of all. I'm not talking about big dramatic fights. I'm not talking about passionate arguments that end in resolution. I mean the small daily acts of fighting for something. The choosing to bring something up even when it's uncomfortable. The choosing to stay in a hard conversation instead of shutting down. The choosing to make a repair after a misunderstanding instead of just moving on like nothing happened. An avoidant who is still invested in you, even an avoidant who struggles with closeness, will still fight for the relationship in these small ways. They will still try. They will still show up. Imperfectly, yes. Inconsistently, maybe. But there will still be effort. There will still be something that tells you they want this to work. When an avoidant wants you out of their life, that effort disappears. Every disagreement gets met with silence or dismissal. Every attempt you make to address something gets minimized or turned around on you. Every repair you try to initiate gets deflected. And you're left holding all the emotional labor of a relationship that one person has already emotionally checked out of. And the crushing thing about this stage is that you're still trying. You're still bringing things up. You're still hoping. You're still doing the work of two people because you love them and you believe in this and you want it to work. And they're watching you do all that work and feeling relieved. Because as long as you keep doing it, they don't have to have the conversation. As long as you keep trying, they can keep coasting toward an exit without ever having to say a word. This is the cruelest part of how avoidants end things. They let you exhaust yourself. They let you do all the trying while they do all the leaving. And they get to walk away without ever feeling like the bad guy because technically, they never said it was over. They just made being with them so emotionally costly that eventually you had to be the one to either give up or go crazy. And I need you to hear this. If you are the only one trying to save something, it is already over. Not because you failed, because one person cannot save a relationship on their own. A relationship requires two people who choose it daily. The moment someone stops choosing it, it begins to die. And no amount of effort from one person can bring back what the other has already walked away from in their heart. Now, you might be sitting here right now thinking, okay, so what do I do with this? And that's the right question. because information without direction is just pain with extra context. So here's what I want you to take from this. First, stop making their behavior about your worth. The fact that an avoidant is pulling away from you is not a verdict on your value as a person or as a partner. Avoidants pull away because of their own unresolved relationship with closeness, their own fear of intimacy, their own patterns that were formed long before you ever showed up. You are not the cause of their avoidance. And being more, being better, being different would not cure it. Second, stop trying to love them into change. This is the trap that keeps good people stuck in bad situations for years. The belief that if you just love hard enough, if you're patient enough, if you're understanding enough, if you give enough, they will eventually feel safe enough to stop running. But that's not how this works. You cannot love someone out of an attachment style. You cannot be patient enough to fix someone who isn't trying to fix themselves. And you cannot keep pouring yourself out for someone who isn't even holding the cup. Third, take the signs seriously. Not as evidence that you did something wrong, as information about where this person is and what they're capable of right now. And use that information to make a decision about your own life, because you get to make a decision too. This isn't something that just happens to you. You have agency here. And the most powerful thing you can do with these signs is to take them seriously instead of explaining them away. Because here's the truth that most people in this situation don't want to accept. The signs were always there. The withdrawal, the emotional distance, the shrinking future, the one-sided effort, they were always there. And on some level, you always knew. You just kept hoping you were wrong. You weren't wrong. And knowing you weren't wrong is actually the beginning of something. Because once you stop trying to convince yourself that things are fine, once you stop waiting for them to come back to you, once you stop making yourself smaller so they'll stay, you start to take up space again. You start to remember who you were before this person made you question everything. You start to understand your own worth without needing someone else to confirm it. And that is when your life actually changes. Because the relationship you're clinging to right now is not the relationship you deserve. The person you're begging for breadcrumbs from is not the person who will love you the way you are capable of being loved. And the energy you are pouring into someone who is quietly on their way out is energy that belongs to you. It belongs to your healing. It belongs to your future. It belongs to the version of you that doesn't shrink, doesn't beg, doesn't negotiate for basic human connection. That version of you is not far away, but you cannot get there while you're still standing in the doorway of a relationship that someone else has already left. Let me go deeper on what this pattern actually does to you over time, because I think people underestimate how damaging this specific dynamic is. When you're in a relationship with an avoidant who is quietly exiting, your nervous system goes into a constant state of low-grade threat. You're not quite in crisis, but you're not okay either. You're in this in-between zone where something feels wrong, but you can't quite name it. And that state is exhausting. It depletes your focus. It depletes your confidence. It depletes your ability to trust your own judgment, because every day you spend telling yourself this is fine when it's not fine trains your brain to distrust itself. And then there's the comparison trap. When they're warm with other people, when you see them laughing easily with friends, being generous and light and present with others, it destroys something in you, because you know what that version of them feels like. You've had moments of that, and watching it get extended to everyone except you quietly convinces you that you're the problem, that you're the one who brings out the worst in people, that you're the one who makes people want to leave. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that avoidants feel safest with people they don't feel close to. The very fact that they've let you in, even a little, triggers their deepest fears. So the closer you get, the more threatening you become to them. And they begin to treat you worse than they treat casual acquaintances, because you matter more. And that's a broken system. That is a broken way to be in relationships. And no amount of love from you can rebuild what was broken before you got there. This is why staying and trying harder doesn't work. Because the problem isn't how much you love them. The problem is the framework they operate in. The framework that says closeness is dangerous. The framework that says need is a weakness. The framework that says love is something to be escaped from before it swallows you whole. You walking away from that framework isn't giving up. It's waking up. Let's talk about what avoidants actually need, so you understand this isn't personal. Because when you understand the mechanics of avoidant attachment, it stops feeling like a rejection and starts feeling like information. Avoidants learned very early that depending on people was unsafe. Maybe their needs were dismissed. Maybe they were punished for having emotions. Maybe their caregivers were unpredictable. Maybe closeness was always followed by pain. So they built a wall, a very effective, very convincing wall. And they learned to feel most comfortable when they didn't need anyone, when they were self-sufficient, when they kept people at a certain arm's length distance where connection felt manageable. And here's the paradox. They do want connection. Every avoidant deep down wants to love and be loved. But the moment that connection starts to feel real, the moment they start to actually care, everything in them screams danger. And they run, or they push, or they pull away, or they create chaos. Because that chaos, as awful as it feels, is more familiar to them than the vulnerability of real intimacy. So when an avoidant pulls away from you, it's not necessarily because you're not enough. It's because you're enough to scare them. And that's a heartbreaking truth. But it doesn't change the outcome, because a person who is scared of real love and unwilling to work on that fear will keep hurting you regardless of the reason. Understanding the why doesn't mean you have to accept the behavior. Compassion for why someone is the way they are does not require you to sacrifice yourself on the altar of their healing. You can have empathy for their wounds and still walk away from the damage they cause. You can wish them well on their journey and still remove yourself from their path. And this is where so many people get stuck. They think that understanding someone means tolerating them. They think that compassion means staying. But real compassion for yourself means recognizing when a situation is hurting you and choosing to step out of it. Real self-respect means not waiting for someone to decide you're worth showing up for. Real love, the kind you deserve, doesn't ask you to beg for it. Here's something I want you to sit with. What would your life look like if you stopped spending energy on this person right now? What would you think about if you weren't analyzing their behavior? What would you do with your weekends if you weren't waiting for a text? Who would you become if you redirected all the love you've been pouring into someone who isn't holding on to it? That's not a rhetorical question. That's your actual life. And it's waiting for you on the other side of this. Because here's what nobody tells you about finally letting go of an avoidant who's exiting. The first thing you feel is grief. Raw, real grief. And that grief is valid. You're not grieving the relationship you had. You're grieving the relationship you thought you were going to have. The future that was promised and then quietly erased. The version of them that showed up in the beginning and then slowly disappeared. That grief is real. Let it be real. But on the other side of that grief is something extraordinary. Clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you stop living in someone else's emotional fog. The kind of clarity where you start to see yourself again, not through their eyes, not through the distorted lens of a relationship that was making you question everything, but through your own eyes. And you start to see someone who is brave and loyal and generous and patient and gave more than they should have. And you start to feel something you might not have felt in a while. Something that feels like the beginning of coming home to yourself. And I want to be clear about something. This is not about revenge. This is not about becoming someone they'll regret losing. This is not about making them jealous or proving something to them. This is about you. Only you. about reclaiming your life and your energy and your sense of self from a dynamic that has been quietly draining all three. Because you have been the most committed person in this relationship. You have shown up, you have tried, you have loved with your whole chest while they kept theirs locked up tight. And that level of love, that depth of commitment, that capacity for loyalty, that does not disappear because one person couldn't receive it. That stays with you, and it belongs with someone who actually wants it. The 4 signs we talked about today, the disappearing future plans, the emotional unreachability, the independence used as an exit strategy, and the complete cessation of fighting for the relationship, these are not maybes. They are not possibilities. When they all show up together consistently over time, they are a message, a clear, loud, unmistakable message from someone who doesn't have the courage or the care to just say what they mean. And the question is no longer, what do they want? The question is, what do you want? Do you want to keep waiting for someone who has already left in every way that matters? Do you want to keep trying to earn a place in someone's life who has already subtly shown you the door? Do you want to keep making yourself smaller for someone who never deserved your full size to begin with? Or do you want to take this information, these 4 signs, this clarity you now have, and use it to do something radical? Do you want to choose yourself? Do you want to stop negotiating for love and start expecting it? Do you want to stop chasing someone toward you and start walking toward the version of your life where someone actually runs toward you? Because that version exists. That person exists. That love exists. But it cannot find you while you're still standing in the doorway of this one. Walk away from the door. Not with anger, not with bitterness, with the quiet, powerful dignity of someone who finally knows their worth. With the steady confidence of someone who has decided they will no longer accept less than what they are capable of giving. With the grace of someone who understands that some people are not capable of loving you the way you need to be loved. And that is not a reflection of you. It is a limitation of them. And limitations belong to those who have them, not to you. You are not limited. You are not too much. You are not too emotional or too needy or too deep or too loving. You are someone who knows how to love fully and freely and without holding back. And that is extraordinary. That is rare. And it belongs with someone who recognizes it. This is your sign, not theirs, yours. The sign that it's time to stop waiting and start walking. Walking toward yourself. Walking toward your own life. Walking toward the love that doesn't make you question your worth, but confirms it every single day in ways both loud and quiet. You already know what you need to do. Now you just have to trust yourself enough to do it.